Boats missing, houses and phones palace destroyed in landslide in Lebialem on the Guardian Post. The Anglophone crisis is then described on the Voice Weekender as an existential threat to the UN, just when Army General apologizes for military excesses in Moyoka before Tumi's AGC urges government to resume talks with Ambazonian separatists. On the Herald Tribune, then daughters of dreaded Amba General reunited with family in Douala. On the Voice, death then strikes the University of Bamenda as their lecturer Tumi Kenneth dies in tragic car crash in Yaoundé. On the Guardian Post. Cameroonian Vera Songwe in race for World Bank agency top job. At the same time, Cameroonian Engelbert Tundi, candidate for race to a SECNA top job, pledges to strengthen performance. On the Guardian Post, His Excellency Chochu Monono is presented by the advocate as man of the moment with his double appointment. Then the National Commission for the Promotion of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism goes proactive on the horizon before food poisoning leaves 3 dead, 5 hospitalized in Limbe. On the Post. The same paper reports that kidney disease patients protest against government's indifference to their plight. Just when Boya, Bamenda and Bafoussam named most expensive towns in Cameroon, the advocate presents new twist in CDC land surrender imbroglio. Let's now end our press review with a story on the horizon wherein 3 trainees at the Motengene Police School died during their training. The information was made public during the graduation ceremony on August 19 in the institution, presided at by the Delegate General for National Security, Martin Bangangele. Until I come your way again, this is your hour with the press.
Appointment is next Sunday. Emmanuel Avenue and our viewers are waiting for you next Sunday. Prof, you listened to that press review and it started with party discipline. That's the way you call it. And this week, last week that just ended, for a whole week the Central Committee of the CPDM, a subcommittee, ad hoc committee that is in the charge with disciplining those who do not respect the basic rules and regulations of the party. And you had so many files there to treat. Party discipline, what do you put into that package we call party discipline?
Well, party discipline, for us to understand it, has to be looked at from 2 angles or 2 perspectives. One is that for any or for every organization or association or country or any agglomeration of persons that believes in what we call organization, party discipline is first and foremost an ideological orientation, meaning a mindset, a culture. Because all organizations, all associations, be they political parties or civil society organizations or even private associations or local communities, in an organized setting, you have to be of the mindset, you who's a participant in this organization or association, you have to be of the mindset ideologically that you have to be a disciplined quantity. You have to be a disciplined member, That's ideologically speaking. Now, party discipline is also, from the standpoint of the principles of management, is a management mechanism. A management mechanism by which members of the party or the association or the organization accept to abide by and to respect the established rules, constitution, or instructions, and other decisions of that organization.
Yes, we're going to see how far or how near you are with that definition in the way you handle the party activities. You are of the Social Democratic Front, Mr. Nkemlemo Dennis. Do you agree with the definition of party discipline as applied to your party?
Well, I think I don't need to disagree or agree with what Prof has said. I need to look at the concept of discipline. globally, and then how it refers to the specific context of political parties in Cameroon. And then I'll talk more about discipline in the Social Democratic Front, because we feel that it can inspire other political parties to carry out, maintain discipline in theirs. Discipline is a value. It's a very important value. Because all organized and civilized societies, what makes a difference between human beings and animals is that human beings are disciplined, they work within a certain framework to attain results. So if you are not disciplined, you will not be able to attain those results. Unfortunately, what obtains is people have used the important element of discipline for political victimization, and that is where it becomes very problematic, because discipline as a concept is very
no
good.
problem with
no
it.
Organized society can deal without.
Yes,
but when you start using it wrongly, it becomes very, very problematic.
Prof, let us look at it within the context you were meeting this week as the ad hoc subcommittee in charge of discipline in your party. Most of those who were caught up to be disciplined will come to sanctions are those who took part in the municipal and legislative elections.
Yes.
And most of them, for what we know, is that the Central Committee wanted to impose people on what they thought that the local councillors or their militants, their supporters, should vote for them. Is it discipline not well used, if I had to go by what he said?
Yeah, as Mr. Nkemlemo said, when discipline as a management principle or even as an ideological orientation is used to settle personal or political scores,
yes,
or
Prof,
to hurt other people, that should
I want you to contextualize it within what the CPDM was doing this time. Because we know mayors, I can quote some of them.
Yes.
The Central Committee sent down names, and on the field, they said, no, we have to go for election, that's democracy. But some of them have been called up to be sanctioned, to be disciplined.
Yes.
Is that discipline hampering or advancing democracy?
No, for the CPDM party, from what I know, from what I've heard from the Secretary General of the Central Committee and even from the chairperson of the ad hoc disciplinary commission, party discipline is a strong commitment and engagement for the CPDM, and it applies to everyone regardless of what position you hold within the party. It is essential for the party to be able to achieve its objectives, and it is as a matter of honor and credibility for the party. Therefore, its intentions and its objectives are not to hurt somebody or to make somebody look bad. So, but
Prof,
it comes up when somebody compels themselves.
It's not to hurt somebody. The question is simple. The Central Committee has a candidate that it imposes on a council, for example, because those are palpable examples. The councillors are supposed to vote their mayor. The Central Committee sends a name down, and they say, okay, let's go for election with the councillors. Some other person is voted, but that person is called up as an indisciplined. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is one of the cases that constitutes this object and subject of the disciplinary commission's deliberations. You know, what the public tends to forget, and even some militants of our various parties tend to forget, is that at the end of the day, democracy is not only to permit you, the individual, to do whatever you want. Democracy is an organized form of behavior. In every and in any election, it is the party that invests a candidate for any given function or position that is up for the election. And in the case that you are mentioning, we have 360 or so local councils. If you add city councils, that makes it a total of about 374 or so councils. In most, if not all of these councils, yes, it is the councillors themselves who, in a democratic vote, voted for the the mayors and their assistants. And the party, as a democratic party, naturally went along with that. But because according to the law, according to the rules of the party, according to the basic text of the party, it is the party that invests the candidate to be elected for a given position. The party uses its position in certain strategic councils or in certain strategic areas where the party, after consultations with the various stakeholders, has a point and puts its points across. Now, when you go against, of course, you are going against the discipline of the party.
The question still holds, excuse me for insisting.
Yes.
Because when some other person is voted, it means that the base like that person. The party is imposing an unpopular person. How democratic do we justify that?
No, generally the party doesn't impose. Where the party puts in, the party as the machinery puts in its word, it is usually after consultations with the base, meaning the stakeholders. There's no investiture without consultation. That's what people do not know. People tend to think that investiture means imposition. No, investiture is consultation and respect for the position of the party. You see, so it has nothing, there's no imposition. Of course, the person who would like to be and who is not selected by the party will see it as an imposition. But from the party standpoint, because don't forget, the party is the competitor. It is not really the individual. Because the competitor, according to the law, you don't run for the position of mayor or assistant mayor as an individual. According to the law, you run for the position of mayor and assistant mayor by passing through a party ticket.
Eugene, you have observed that as a reporter. Your comment on party discipline, how does it either hamper or advance democratic process in the country?
Let me start from the issue on discussion. I think one of the problems is that our political parties in Cameroon are very structured organizations. They are not movements where you can drift in and out based on a certain ideology that you ascribe to. These are very, very strong, structured institutions, whether it's the CPDM or the SDF. And so party discipline now appears to be aligning with party orientations, which sometimes limits the ability within those political parties to freely express their political ambitions, their political ideologies even. And so that's why I think that party discipline, the way it's understood in Cameroon and the way the political parties are structured, is really, really not a very good thing for democratic process, because there's so much limitation that has been placed on the individual in terms of how you can express your political views and opinions and go forward. Secondly, we could have if we had a political party that was a movement, for example, where it's just an ideology to which people ascribe, and you could agree and disagree among yourselves, but agree on a core ideological understanding of what public service or what political engagement should look like. People can move in and out. That, to me, would be the ideal kind of political party to advance democracy, where there is really little limitations on people's political aspirations, very little limitations on people's opinions. The real problem is, it's not only the structural limitations that have been described, but the freedom of expression itself is constrained by that overstructured political party.
Yes, and it is really structured because in Cameroon you don't have free candidates during
yes. So, I mean, we're not saying, we're analyzing the situation, right?
Yes.
And we're saying that there's something fundamentally incorrect about the system itself. And you're very right when you make it that way. In Cameroon, I've argued on this program before that it's very difficult to have a political career outside of the political party in Cameroon. The law gives the political party so much power on the control of the political space, which is really not very good for democracy.
Thank you. When you spoke a while ago, you ended by saying that if it is not well used, it will end up victimizing some of the aspirants, people who have aspirations in the party. And we know that the SDF is not spared from that type of party discipline.
No. We are very, very much spared from it. You know, maybe to explain myself, I want to make some sort of a comparative explanation. You know, the discipline is so important to the Social Democratic Front to the extent that a whole article with so many sub-articles concentrates or regulates issues of discipline. It's very well regulated in the
You're talking about
Article 8. No, 8. 8
okay.
is just a sub. Yes, the whole of Article 8 is on party discipline. Of course, people talk much about 8.2 because it is the most severe of the sub-articles of 8.
Very good. If people talk so much about it, it means that you use it more than the others.
No, it is, let me take the example of a school. You can punish students, students that are punished by kneeling down, working punishment outside, are by far more than those who are dismissed from the school. When you dismiss a child from the school, it's news, it's really breaking news. But when you punish a child otherwise, it goes normal. So it is but normal that a big party like the Social Democratic Front, and if you are a heavyweight, and since we don't have sacred cows, and if it falls on you, it is supposed to be breaking news.
And so it has fallen on so many top rankings.
Of course, that shows you that law is not a respecter of persons. With the Social Democratic Front, the law is not a respecter of persons. Because how does 8.2 apply? Let me start from there. 8.2, unlike in the other political parties, like the one that Prof belongs to, which I just mentioned, we don't have the president of the party having the powers to create a commission of discipline.
Many people don't share that idea. They think that chairman is the all and all.
Let me tell you what happens. You know, that is perception, but I'm telling you the reality. I am saying that with the SDF, the structure to which you belong, the defaulter belongs, is the one that tries you. So we don't need somebody to create a commission, disciplinary commission. Let me give an example of the electoral district, which covers a council area or a subdivision. When there is an issue of a disciplinary issue that needs to be examined seriously, the executive bureau of the electoral district transforms itself into a disciplinary commission and in a disciplinary committee. And in that committee, you are served a summon to appear with all your charges. And you are reminded of your right to bring a lawyer to defend you yourself, to defend you in front of the commission, provided that lawyer is a member of the Social Democratic Front.
Yeah,
Yes, that is what many people don't know. And
it doesn't sound like a good thing to me.
No, it is. But whether it's good, I'm telling you the facts of the Constitution. And when they try you, when you have trial, you leave, and then the executive, the particular executive bureau constitutes a jury that deliberates on sanctions. and then, if you don't feel satisfied, if you feel that justice has not been done, you appeal to the higher structure, right up to NEC. And if at the level of NEC, they still see that you still feel that you are not satisfied with the sanctions, you appeal to the highest organ of the party, which is a national convention. And that's why during every convention sitting, we have a judiciary committee that examines some of those cases that have come up from the basis, from the party structure.
Yes.
So it is done in a way that we don't have a situation where somebody just takes a pen, because the danger with taking a pen and creating a committee is that you can use those committees to handle your political opponents. You will appoint only those who will say what you want to say in that.
Now, I will stay with you. Prof, just let me ask Mr. Nkemlemo this question. from the basic organs right up to the National Convention, as you have said.
Yes.
Is it so frustrating, the disciplinary procedure, that members who fall under that 8-2, because that's the final thing,
yes.
The final hammer of the disciplinary process,
Mm-hmm.
it frustrates your party members to the extent that most of them, especially the top ones, end up leaving, because we can quote. We are not going to quote
No,
names here.
8-2 already is auto-exclusion. So when you have 8-2, you have no choice. You are no longer a member of the party. It's auto-exclusion. And why do we call it auto-exclusion? It is because before you take the card of the Social Democratic Front as a member, you have read the Constitution, you say that you abide by the Constitution, you know the things that can give you 8-2. And they are well spelled out. Nobody invents it.
But
and so when you willingly go against, you know the consequences. So
most of the big wigs of their party have left, formed their own parties or cross-carpeted.
Yes.
And it has weakened the party, because from 1990 to this day, this is the position the SDF has the lowest representation.
Killian, if we want to talk about lowest representation in national elections, it's a different chapter altogether. We know how elections operate in Cameroon. I want to come back to the point you made about those who have been auto-excluded themselves because of 8-2 and formed political parties. You can understand from the fate of those their own political parties that are formed that they were the problem, and not the SDF being the problem. The dwindling fate of those, and even the political fate of those people who have left. It is normal, it's human nature to commit an offense, you are punished and you go and cry foul. And you know, politics is so full of perceptions which are different, more often different from the reality.
So the structuring, even if it's different, the effect, the end result is the same.
I wanted to say something that Eugene said earlier, to react to something that Eugene said earlier about discipline used to stifle debates within the party.
You don't think so?
No, not that I don't think so. I think he's correct, but not with the Social Democratic Front, because the Social Democratic Front, and this is, I'm very serious on what I'm saying, is the only party in Cameroon that encourages a lot of internal debate. You will see we have had NEG meetings which run beyond 24 hours. We had to reconvene because the debate are so heated. So
an idea for the CPDM party how it works. There are, if you look at the basic text of the party, there are 5 articles from Article 31 to Article 35 that talk about just discipline. And in the CPDM party, discipline or disciplinary committees function at 3 levels. The first level is at the level of the basic organs. Any level of any basic organ in the CPDM can constitute itself into a disciplinary committee, meaning cell, branch, subsection, and section. Each of their executive bureaus are actually disciplinary committees that, if at any of those levels any member misbehaves or comports themselves wrongly, the executives of any of those levels can constitute itself into a disciplinary committee or commission, and they can sanction the militant. The other level that many people tend to talk about is the level that is meeting now in the Central Committee, which is the second level, which is the ad hoc committee or commission of the Central Committee. The ad hoc committee of the Central Committee of the CPDM is simply the second level. And the cases that they deal with at the level of the Central Committee in terms of the ad hoc disciplinary commission are cases that have come up from the basic organs. They are not cases which have just been concocted in Yaoundé. It's usually the presidents of sections, heads of the divisional delegations or regional delegations, section presidents, who have come up with documents and reports that they have placed at the level of the Central Committee, and the Central Committee has taken an action given the basic text. There is another level, which is the third level, which people tend to ignore, which is the level of the political bureau. the political bureau, on the instructions of the national president, can constitute itself into a disciplinary commission and sanction a militant, but usually at that level, the case has to be a very serious case. And when it's a serious case at that level, it is the national president himself who presents that case to the political bureau, and the political bureau will carry out the sanction. But whatever be the level, from the lowest level through the level of the central committee and even the level of the political bureau, the person or the persons that are heard before these instances, they have the freedom to be assisted by a lawyer of their choice or a peer, meaning one of their members, to come and defend them. They are free to
We've
defend
understood.
themselves.
When we listen to the SDF, we listen to the CPDM, it's a similar thing that
we
happens.
take discipline seriously, and maybe the results are different because we usually do not have the culture or the record of expelling people definitively. I'm sure you know this. Statistics show that the CPDM hardly and does not expel somebody, because by its definition, the CPDM is a rallying movement, and that principle or spirit of a rally is always present
very
in CPDM.
strong.
So
okay.
you are always willing to...
We got that. We are going to get out of this
Prof,
topic.
Yeah.
just very briefly, but Prof, which one is better? To say that, okay, you have auto-excluded yourself, you can carry out your political career somewhere else freely and be a free person, or to send you to prison, as many of you in your party.
Prof will not be the one to answer. No, he's not answering. He's not answering. You are not to answer that.
It's only the state that sends to prison.
Prof, please.
We don't send anybody.
Prof.
Yes.
He is not asking the questions on this set.
Yeah.
So, which one is better according to you?
I think that the Social Democratic Front's method, that to say that you have offended, you have carried out a grave offense to the party, but you are still a free man. You can follow your pursue your political career from a different...
Yes, we have understood. You mean that if somebody merits prison in the SDF, the SDF will not send the person to prison?
No, why not? What my
following
problem?
what you said.
No. My problem is, if you look at it is very difficult to feel that those who are moving free and managing state affairs are barons of the CPDM, because you must first of all, one of the greatest criteria.
Is it not normal?
No,
listen,
this is important. One of the greatest criteria of having a high level position where you exert a lot of responsibility is you have to be member of the CPDM. That's why many people who are even appointed without being members, they rush to get their cards in order to consolidate their position, their political position. But the point I'm making is that when you look at those gurus outside, those CPDM gurus that manage outside, they are not better than those who are in prison. So there is a different, there's a different perspective.
I'm not from our topic.
We are talking about
the party has no power to send someone to prison.
I'm not
no
talking
political
about
party has that power.
And we know that's why they call the CPDM the state party, because
no, it's not a state party.
The Secretary General of your party, Prof, the Secretary General of your party, do you know that he has the rank in the administration of a Vice Prime Minister? And he has a budget from the taxpayer.
Not a state budget.
No. When you equate to he is the vice. He is no longer a minister, a sitting-in minister.
That's true.
But he has the rank in administration of a vice prime minister.
Let me
don't use state instruments to give honor and privileges to political party members. It doesn't go like that. It's difficult to defend that one.
There are traditional leaders.
There's a lot of confusion between CPDM and the state administration and management.
Our topic is this, Prof. This is our topic. party discipline,
Yeah.
does it advance or hamper the democratic process? That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
We're not talking about the way parties are structured and how they are run. Now we're going to move.
For the CPDM, it advances democracy, the democratic process. It's good. It shows credibility.
Yes.
It shows commitment. It shows engagement.
Very briefly, what are the sanctions that you have during
the sanctions are
briefly? We're going to
the sanctions are previewed by the text, and the sanctions go for the disciplinary committees that meet at the level of the basic organs. The sanctions provided by the text are that they can be given a blame, they can be reprimanded, and the persons can be suspended from the party function.
Okay.
Party function. Now, at the level of the Central Committee, the level at which we are working for the present commission, the sanctions that are provided include temporary expulsion, permanent or definitive expulsion, or you can be suspended from your function.
Okay, thank you.
Because there are two categories of sanctions.
Yes. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the second topic, and our second topic is on disasters. We are asking the question, the many disasters that we have, the multiplication of disasters in all kinds, is it a way nature is paying back human stubbornness? But before we discuss that topic, what has been happening in Cameroon within the past 2-3 weeks?
Upon arrival in Sangchu, the Minister of Territorial Administration, Paul Atanganji, saw for himself how parts of the town are still in water several days after the floods. He also visited a portion of the Melong Sangchu road that is on the verge of collapse because of effects of the floods. Both the mayor of Sangchu and the member of parliament of the locality expressed joy for the visit, saying that it's been about 40 years that a member of government has not visited Sangchu. Paul Atanganji delivered a message of comfort and assurance to the victims and population of Sangchu.
President Paul Biya does not forget any person. Bear in mind that President Paul Biya is head of state and the father of nation. He tells you what he does and he does what he tells you.
185 families in Sangchu have been affected by the floods.
As the rainy season intensifies in the far north region, memories of last year's floods which eroded the Mizao Bridge are still fresh in the minds of many inhabitants of Marwa. To prevent the repeat of this mishap, the City Council has embarked on the opening of the major drainage channel, on which the government has invested a sum of 10 billion francs for its construction.
We will make a diagnostic to the situation. Since 12 years today, this is the first time, and I hope that population will follow what we are doing it, to observe all hygiene rules here.
The depression came as a result of a landslide on one slope of the road, causing almost half of the road to crumble, thereby rendering circulation near fragile. This road is one of the main roads leading to the Douala International Airport. This incident is one of the after effects of the flood that hit the economic capital days ago after a heavy downpour. After a visit by the senior divisional officer for the Vuri and a team from the Douala City Council, and per a communique signed by the littoral governor, this part of the road has been barred from circulation.
It's been days since the recent flooding in the economic capital, but Mama Tafok Florence still prefers to stick to this new arrangement of things imposed by the disaster in her home. The earth floor in her home is still wet. Dresses and other items smell of cold in this modest home of 4 in the Bobongo 2 neighborhood in Douala Free, and the nightmare of Friday, August 21 is still fresh in the minds.
C'était la catastrophe.
It was catastrophic. I sell cooked meat by the roadside. That day the entire pot got lost as I was swept by the water. In my house I lost all my electronic equipment, and I was also forced to throw away some dresses.
Bobongo 2 and 6 other neighborhoods are the highest hit of 106 quarters and 19 villages that make up the municipality.
Those reports can constitute what we call the tip of an iceberg of what is happening in Cameroon and, of course, around the world. Eugene, media and development consultant, how do we explain the multiplicity, the increasing wave of disasters. The question we are asking, which we will answer later, is nature punishing us? But first of all, how do we explain it?
I think there are many possible explanations. Some of them are infrastructural in nature. Remember that a disaster only occurs when the level of damage reaches a certain threshold. You could still have flood. If you have floods in the jungle, it's really not a disaster per se. But what we have experienced is that the number of what referred to technically as extreme weather events, which include unusually torrential rains, floods in places that we didn't used to have floods, are increasing. Not only are they increasing in terms of their frequency, but the severity of these events are also increasing. And there is a direct relationship between that and climate change. Now, the level of damage that they can cause would have to do with infrastructure, the way the roads are built, the drainage system within a city, urban areas or even rural areas, but also the way as humans we have been able to use nature. Trees, for example, provide a natural wedge and help limit how much of soil erosion we can have, and all of those roads moving away is because most of those roads you'll find that the trees around the roads, the gullies have become bare over the time, and so flash floods tend to be faster, and the energy that is required to tip up a hillside or to flush out a road has reduced over time. So there are a lot of both man-made and sometimes just natural occurrence. By some reason that we didn't choose, we live in a place where it's more likely to have heavier rains.
Yes, Eugene, you say the wave of floods, of disasters, you define that so well, is linked to climate change. How do we bring to the understanding of a common person the paradox of the climate getting hotter, but we get floods, we get more water?
Okay, that's an interesting one, right? Now, this is what's happening. So, if you increase the global average temperature, I don't want to get into the geography of it or the science of it, but the idea is if you increase the average temperature, you have more moisture leaving the surface of the earth into the atmosphere, and when that water condenses, the rains are heavier. That is why hotter parts of the country tend to have a lot more rain. The coastal parts of the country that are warmer have heavier rains. All of the tropical, if you look at even the world map, the tropics tend to have more rains, but the tropics are also the parts of the world that are warmest in terms of temperature. So there's that relationship between temperature and rainfall. But the opposite is happening in places like the extreme north, where we have more prolonged dry season. And this prolonged dry season is due to the fact that first you really don't have so much moisture in that place and those parts of the country naturally, but also the fact that when it rains, it's like all of the rain that needed to fall for that year decides to fall in a couple of days.
And I have been there, you're right.
And the floods, the impact in terms of floods are almost the same.
Yes, there are times that you run from October to May without a drop of rain.
So maybe to explain further is that global warming cascades a number of other changes in the climatic system. You have, for example, it may not be our case, but because the surface of the earth is warmer, you have the currents in the ocean change. You have all of these cyclones that are happening. The distribution of air pressure on the surface of the earth is torpedoed. And you have winds that are moving at speeds that we have never experienced, and all those kinds of things.
Thank you. When you were giving the explanation, Eugene, he talked about the disaster that you can even have mudslides, you can have so much damage somewhere where the effects, the consequences do not affect maybe infrastructure, property, human beings. You cannot consider that a disaster. And we have instances in our country, Mr. Nkemlemo Dennis, where if it happens, it will just be catastrophic due to human activity.
Of course, it has been catastrophic. You have some experience of the north, and you know that the floods that occur year in, year out, each time they occur in the north don't spare human beings and property. What happened in Douala recently did not spare human beings and well, maybe there were no deaths, but a lot of property damage. I think that why I buy what Eugene has said from the scientific perspective of explaining that phenomenon of disaster, of natural disasters. Civilized countries that are responsible and think that they have a duty to carry out vis-a-vis their population, mitigate some of the effects of those natural disasters. Unfortunately, it is not the case in our country because even we have more man-made disasters even than natural disasters. You just saw the picture of the road in Sanchu and the road linking the airport in Douala. You see that those are examples of bad work. Because if a road that has been compacted and tarred, it starts, holes start coming up from below and the road start collapsing, it is a clear sign that those who did that road didn't do it well.
Without going against what you are saying, roads have a lifespan, I'm told.
Yeah, but well, I don't know whether roads have lifespan in Cameroon, because if you take the road Baba Jubamenda, which that road was constructed even before Mr. Biya came to power, that road has never been reconstructed. So if he had, and that goes to comfort the point I'm making, that when the road reaches its lifespan and you don't redo the road, you are already inviting a disaster.
Okay.
Just to conclude this point, it is like the allowance of disasters to come and inflict pain in Cameroon to Cameroonians is part of policy, because we don't understand why each time we wait when there is a disaster, whether it's a minister or whoever runs with gifts and present it in front of television cameras to the population that it is from the head of state to boost his image, when we have a whole department of civil protection in the Ministry of Territorial Administration, which is supposed to on daily basis examine potential disasters, take care of them. But the way we are always reacting as if that department is just an ad hoc committee in the ministry.
What do you say to all these, because most of these places have been marked? Some of the people who suffer, that the people you are tagging here go to help, have been asked to leave those areas, but they stay. Don't you see that as a shared responsibility?
Not the point. I don't think so. There is a time. If a government is a government worth a government of the people, there is a time that the government must impose certain things, because the government is put there to oversee things that can be a disaster. I was impressed with CRTV. I want to give a local example here in Yaoundé, when they preempted a disastrous situation by showing a very big rock behind the handicap center.
Yes,
which was
one of the hills.
Yes, which is at the level of dislocating. The crevice has become so wide, and when you look at the population under,
yes,
and you imagine if that rock falls, the pathway that it will take to the valley. But until now, nothing is done. They will wait until that thing will collapse, then they will bring gifts from the head of state to say they are going to call. So that is what I'm talking about.
What we are also asking you is, all these people have been told that they should leave that place, and they are not leaving.
The government has to force them to leave and then resettle them where it is safe. It is the responsibility of the government.
Yes.
What I know is that disasters that are natural, we refer to them as natural disasters, are something you could predict, but you can't prevent. What you can prevent is the consequences. You can preempt. Yeah, no. What I'm trying to say is that natural disasters are natural, and Eugene has explained very well scientifically how they come about and their nature. Now, when the disaster becomes a man-made one, of course, that we can prevent because that depends on you and I. And from what I know, in most societies, in most countries in the world, the governments of these countries have in place a disaster management structure. Either it's a full ministry or part of a ministry. Like in the case of Cameroon, I think it's part of the Ministry of Territorial Administration, which has a Department of Civil Protection. And their job is to make sure that you manage and not to prevent natural disasters from happening, because they are natural, they will happen. But you want to make sure that when and if they happen, wherever they happen, the work of the public's agency, a ministry or a department of a ministry responsible for its management should ensure that there is less pain, less misfortune, less suffering in terms of loss of life, loss of property, and dislocation of the lifestyles and so forth of people. So as far as I know, all governments, including our government, has been handling this aspect of this phenomenon. And sure, we as a free society, we can criticize, which is normal for us to criticize, but we have to give credit that our government agency responsible for that, which is under the Minister of Territorial Administration with his Department of Civil Protection, they have been on the field to make sure that you limit the suffering, you limit the loss of life, you limit the consequences from the destruction of property or destruction of homes and dislocation of life. Because at the end of the day, natural disasters will keep on happening, as Eugene has explained scientifically. But what we should avoid, and I think every country tries to avoid this, and all governments are set up in such a way that they try to avoid the phenomenon of man-made disasters. Because man-made disaster you can prevent, but a natural disaster
is natural.
It's natural.
Yes, but Eugene, you have people who have been resettled. Let me, some of those things are working, I have seen myself. When you go to Maga, where you have Lake Maga, every year we had that lake overflowing, and there is a large project there that has built a dig and dig road that have, we call them a dike, that have actually blocked that water from overflowing to where it will harm people. But there are some other places where in process is going. Should we continue to say government not doing this when people have been asked to go away from such areas and the state?
No, I think what we shouldn't lose sight of is that resettlement, for example, is only one option. The idea of disaster risk management is that you're managing the risks, not the disaster. So, which therefore means that it's a forward-looking approach to managing disasters. In that you go to a place like around the airport in Douala, like the slums of Yaoundé, like the slums in Douala, and you can make an assessment of disaster risk, and you can use both engineering as well as regulatory mechanisms to resolve that problem. It could mean defining new building regulations for that area. You can't apply the same building regulations for people who live along waterways as those who live up the hills. So municipalities need to be dynamic in that sense, in that you can't apply the same building regulation across the city as if it was one homogeneous ground.
Yes. Just on that point, before you continue, let us look at Boya, let us look at Douala, let us look at Limbe, let's look at some other places that are prone to some natural disasters. We have always said that the lava is from the volcanic activity in Mamboya is very kind to people. It always goes the other side. But we also have the tremors, but the buildings there are skyrocketing. What if there's tremors?
Yes, that's what I say, that if I grew up in Boya, at some time we had the feeling that you couldn't be more than 2 stories in Boya. We thought that was just was a regulation. Perhaps it was just that the economy was not strong enough. But in Boya, for example, you cannot apply the same structural engineering requirements as, say, in Limbe. If the council doesn't understand this is something they need to take into account. If you look at some of the old buildings around the Mountain Club, for example, that are suspended, because they really allowed water to flow easily when it rains up the mountain, or if you had the risk of lava coming down the mountain, at least you have enough time to evacuate people or even spare some houses. And so all of these are the risks that are involved. You need to assess them and you ask yourself, how do we then build to resist this potential risk? What kind of structural engineering requirements do we demand from our builders? How do we build our roads to quickly evacuate people? Can you evacuate people very quickly from Boya with one road that runs across the city, for example?
There's another road built that's coming from the other side.
The questions are more rhetorical than requiring a direct answer. I'm just saying these are the kinds of questions that the municipal council sits and asks themselves to be able to build a city that is resilient and responds to the disaster risks that are available within the city. It could even go to the extent of limiting the number of houses you build and say that we have 1,000 houses, we're not building any new houses in this municipality. That has been done in places. It's not because, and we've had a lot of argument about land use management. It's not because you own the land that you choose how to exploit the land. The government can say, no, this is purely agricultural, this is purely recreational, this is purely industrial, and if you own land there, you can only use it, you can only put it to one of those uses as prescribed by the state.
Okay.
And that's because you are trying to manage things like that.
Do you have some other ways by which we can't, because what he's saying is like preventing it from happening?
Yes, other ways of managing the consequences of disasters is to put in place alert systems, early warning systems. There are some countries, Japan and others, in the US, for example.
We have that in Cameroon, we have in Legnos, we have in Legnos.
I think Cameroon is already...
In Legnos also.
The good thing about the Cameroonian approach to disaster management is that government is open to partnerships with expert international organizations that are really known for managing, preventing the risks and so forth of disasters. And we've seen it in Legnos area and in other areas. And I think that once a government is this open, as we see our government, the chances are that they will always limit the consequences and the pain and the suffering to the barest minimum. And that's what I think our government is doing. Because there are some governments who are not open, which are not open. Once there's a disaster, they block, and they don't want any international cooperation, which is not good. Our government is always open, and I think it's doing the job that is expected of it.
Dennis, you come from a place that's also disaster prone, especially mudslides, the BLM division. What can be done to prevent that from...
I think that when I listen to Prof, I wonder whether we are in the same country. Because before I talk about the BLM, which is very hilly... Briefly, please, we have just... Yes, the point is, the councils, you have so many structures put in place by the government to manage disasters, mitigate consequences of disasters, but we have the impression that nothing is being done. Nobody is talking of preventing disasters here, but we are saying that when it does happen, like floods, like heavy rainfall, we should not experience floods the way we experience, because if there is a good drainage system in the town, it can mitigate. But
yes,
we have councils, we have Ministry of Planning, we have all that. We have the impression that nothing is being done.
Thank you very much. Elvis Teke, good day, welcome. You have the reactions from our viewers.
Yes, thank you, Killian. Quite a good number of them. We may not be able to take all. But let's begin with Eno Mani Samuel, who says, nature is indeed unleashing its anger on humans, saying that some wicked-minded people go about blocking gutters and prohibiting the flowing of water. And Prince Motabene, who says we have been using more and more of natural resources and harming our nature, and this comes at the cost, and which is the floods we see around and loss of large portions of our natural world, leading to disasters and human losses. And Daniel Yabalel says nature is suffering from the obstruction caused by the absence of standard town planning. I will conclude with Molunash Bob, who says, should government officials resign for failing to give basic amenities to its people? Is there truly a democratic process? And Mother Nature has already given us time and space to protect its environment and heal from the ongoing flood and disasters.
Thank you very much, Teke, Elvis. Thank you, gentlemen. I will also thank you for giving us your time on this program. You can watch this program after here on CRTV Web Facebook. You always have that time. There will be a rebroadcast tomorrow by 3. Thanks for watching. Have a blessed day ahead.